I met Steve a few years ago, and the only time we ever see each other is online. So now getting to hear his story in person. So would you please welcome Steve from Colorado?
My name is Steve and I'm an addict. Is that coming through? Okay, good, because I can't hear it. First of all, I want to let you guys know, Liverpool, you guys know how to put on a celebration of recovery. This has been a really great convention. And I've been to a few. And, you know, from the moment I walked in the door, and when I got here, there's only one person that I'd ever met before. And that's Alan. I know I met John in Thailand, but I didn't know anybody. You know, I didn't know a soul. And everyone was so welcoming. You know, people are coming over, can we show you around, or do you need some advice on where to go, or, you know, tell me about Colorado. Because I've been to other conventions where I go and people aren't as friendly. You guys have been great. I really appreciate that. This is the beginning of a vacation. You know, I travel and go on vacations, and I look at, hey, is there an NA convention I can catch at the beginning of my vacation? So I'll be on the road for about 3 weeks, but this is a great way to get it started. You know, and when I get here, I know that I'm going to share my story, and I don't know if I have anything in common with a lot of people here. You know, I come from a completely different part of the world. There's a little bit of a language barrier because I know our Americans took your language and we butchered it. And I can't understand some of you. I understood about 80% of what I heard this weekend. You know, and I think what was great was yesterday was a speaker named Jerry, and I love comedy and laughing, and I think we need to laugh in recovery. And he was making jokes, and people were, and I was laughing along with him, and it was great. I didn't understand a damn word he said, but I could tell you it was funny because the language of recovery is universal. You know, when I go to another country, and I've been to a few countries where English is not the first language, and I'll be going to Portugal next week, and people say, Steve, we'll take you to an English-speaking meeting. And I said, no, I don't want to go to an English-speaking meeting. I want to go to a meeting and hear people talking in their own home language. Because I understand when someone is sharing in another language, I can see that they're talking about recovery, you know. And only we know that, you know, because we get to do this together. And that's a topic they asked me to share is I can't and we can. Because we all share the same message, and that's an addict, any addict, can stop using, learn how to stop using, and find a new way to live. And I messed that up, but I think you got the point. So I got clean in Southern California, and I've lived in Colorado for the last 33 years. I got clean in the San Fernando Valley where it all began. So before that, I just wanted to thank the committee and tell the committee, if any of the committee is in here now, what a great job you guys did at this convention. Let's give them a hand. I also want to thank anyone who's been around at this convention for a long time because they keep it moving. Is there anyone here who's been at this convention for 9, 10, or 11 years? You are welcome. Thank you for keeping it going. And now for the most important person in this room. Is there anyone who's at this convention for the first time? Please stand so we can welcome you. Thank you. Keep coming back. We need you here. So we're going to tell you a story of something in NA folklore. And if you know what folklore is, it's the only thing I've written down. The traditions, beliefs, customs, and stories of community passed based through word of mouth. So there's a story about a retreat center that's in Santa Barbara, California. Alan knows Santa Barbara. It's a gorgeous place, and my sponsor has taken us on retreats there. And there's a story that's passed down, and sometimes these folklore stories get a little embellished, so don't worry if it doesn't sound 100%. But Friday night, we always had a speaker meeting around, or a sharing meet around a campfire, and these three addicts decided to take a walk after the meeting. And if you don't know Santa Barbara, it's a gorgeous beach town, and then there's mountains and trees, and it's really kind of it's in the middle of a forest. And these three addicts took a walk after the meeting, and they got hopelessly lost, and they couldn't find their way back to the retreat center. And they saw some smoke coming up, and they figured, oh, that's the retreat center, but it wasn't. And actually, they walked into the camp of a tribe of cannibals. And the cannibals captured these guys and said, you know, we haven't had a meal in a while, and tonight you're ours. But we're going to give each of you, it's a custom in our tribe to give each of you one final request. So what's your last request? They said to the first guy, he said, well, I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous, and I need to work my 11th step. So I need 30 minutes of quiet time for some prayer or meditation, and then you can do with me what you want. And they said, you know what, we can do that. And they gave the guy 30 minutes for prayer and meditation. They said, there's a second guy, what is your final request? And he said, well, man, I'm also a member of NA. I just want to tell my story one last time. I want to tell you about all the drugs I did. I'm going to tell you about all the crimes I committed, all the family members I screwed over, all my time in prison. I'm going to tell you how we got all the drugs in the prison. So I need about 90 minutes. Just give me 90 minutes to tell my story one last time. And the cannibals go, well, yeah, that might be entertaining. You can do that. So the third guy, what's your last request? He goes, if that's the case, all I ask is that you take me right now, because I don't think I could sit through another one of those stories. So what I want to do tonight is not put you through that. And instead I'm going to talk about my recovery and how I recover in Narcotics Anonymous, which is why I have How It Works, because the way I recover is through the 12 steps. So I'm going to kind of tell my story and say how I can't and we can through the 12 steps of NA. And the first step, I got to look because my memory's bad. We admitted we were powerless over our addiction and our lives would become unmanageable, so I got to tell you my little story a little bit, where I came from. I was born in New York City, and I was born into an ultra-religious family. Everything was about God. God willing this, thank God for this. We say prayers before the meals, we'd say prayers after the meals. I went to all boys religious schools through high school, and it was prayers at night, prayers in the morning, and I was growing up and I realized that that did not feel right. And when I was 15 years old, I decided that I wasn't going to live my life that way. That I would rebel against the religion that my parents wanted me to be in, and they wanted me to be in it for the rest of my life, and I rebelled against it. And I was 16, I was a senior in high school, in an all-boys religious school, and one of my classmates took me behind the school at lunch, and he goes, hey, Steve, check this out. He pulled something out of his pocket, and I got high for the first time, and I found something that was as important to me as religion was to my parents. And I chased that thing, and I chased it for a long time. And, I finally got away from my parents' grasp, and I went to university, and my addiction just blossomed from there, it exploded from there. I like to say that during, when I was in class, and I take class in the morning so I can get high the rest of the day. In class, I was a major in the study of business, with an emphasis on marketing and finance. And as soon as class got out, I was a major in chemistry with an emphasis in pills, powders, and liquids. And I was constantly loaded. But the weird thing is I was a really good student, and I graduated from the university with honors. And I always said, you know what, when I get out of school, I'll stop. And I moved to Los Angeles, and I got a job with an international finance company, and I couldn't stop. Because I knew then that I can't. I didn't yet know about we can. The last place that I thought that I'd get help is from other addicts. That did not enter my mind. So I got this job, and I said, you know what, when I get married and I find someone else to live with, I'll stop then. And in 1981, I got married, and I couldn't stop. You know, when I have a kid, because I'm not going to use with a kid, right? We can't do that. I'm not going to use with a kid in the house. In 1984, my first daughter was born, and I couldn't stop. Now, I tried stopping a lot I was pretty good at stopping. Actually, there were a couple of times where I was able to stop for a whole day, believe it or not. My problem was I was better at restarting than I was at stopping. And, you know, now we get to 1986 and I'm on a 15-year run. And the way I remember it is that my wife said, I'm taking our 2-year-old daughter when we're out of here unless you do something about your drug problem. So I knew nothing about 12-step fellowships. And I was reading the Los Angeles Times. I was living in Los Angeles in the sports section. And there was a coach in the National Hockey League, and I'm a huge hockey fan. I know it's not big here. I played ice hockey till I was 62 years old. And he said that he was in 12-step fellowship. He was in the other fellowship. And I remember they asked him, do you mean you'll never use again? And he said, I can't promise that, but I'm not going to use for today. And tomorrow, I'll make the decision about tomorrow. And that was the first time something made sense in my mind, because I knew that I couldn't, stopping forever was not in the question. And then they said to him, can't you just take one? And he said, if I could take one, I would take one, but I can't take one. One is never enough for me. And that started to make sense. So I decided to look into it. I'd heard about Narcotics Anonymous. And I don't know if you have the yellow pages. Do you know what the yellow pages are? No. It's a phone book. This is before it's Google in written form in alphabetical order. And I looked up LMNNAR. I found Narcotics Anonymous in the book, and I called. And I didn't realize, but I was, if you know where the NA World Service office is in Chatsworth, California. At the time, I was living in Chatsworth, California. And this was in late 1986. There were hundreds of meetings in the San Fernando Valley, as we like to say, where it all began. So there were meetings all over the place. So here I am. I have a wife. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I have a really good job. I own a home, and I have a brand new sports car. And I find my way to this meeting, and I'm early for everything. I get there a half hour before the meeting starts. And then I look who's coming in behind me. There's old beat-up trucks. There's loud motorcycles. There's cars that can hardly run. And I see people getting out of the cars, and they've got really ugly tattoos. Tattoos were not a fashion statement in the mid-'80s. I know now tattoos are really nice. I don't have any, but they're really nice. But I saw these people with really ugly tattoos getting out of these cars, and those were the women. And I said, I am in the wrong place. I have nothing to do with these people, and I drove home. I never made it into the door to that first meeting. But instead, I went to an outpatient treatment center at a hospital. And the first night at that treatment center, there were 4 of us that were brand new. And we told our stories. And I told my story about who I was. And the lady said, before we put you in with the other 50 people that are here, you guys are brand new, I want to let you know that, she said, I get paid by this place. And they don't even like me saying this, but I'm going to tell you that when you finish the 6 weeks here, we'll be there 5 nights a week for 6 weeks. If you don't follow up with 12-step fellowship, you'll never make it. And she turned to me, she goes, Steve, I heard your story. You need Narcotics Anonymous. You need to go to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. Again, I felt special because she singled me out. But the next night was a night off, and I went to my first NA meeting. And those same cars and those same people were there. And I went into the meeting, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to learn from these people. And I looked at the steps on the wall, and I saw the word God way too many times, because I wanted nothing to do with God. That was what I was running away from. And after the meeting, and I saw people were having fun, and they were hugging each other, and they were having a good time, and they were enjoying life. And they were saying, my name is Joe, and I'm an addict. And I'm going, I wasn't sure what was going on, because I thought I had a drug problem. And this guy came over to me after the meeting, and he goes, Steve, is this your first meeting? And I said, yes, it is. And I said to him, what's the deal with this stuff about God? And he said, it's not a religious program, it's a spiritual program. You probably don't know what that means, but keep coming back and you'll learn. And then I said to him, Gary Sherrod last night touched on the same thing. I said, what's the catch? People are too happy. Well, what's the catch? There's something going on here. There's some kind of trick. And instead of defending it, he said, Steve, keep coming back and keep looking for the catch. The day that you find it, you'll never need one of these meetings again. So that was 38 and a half years later. I'm still looking. One of these days I'm going to find it. And then he told me he had 7 years clean. And inside, I chuckled, going, 7 years? If I could stop using for 6 months, I'm not going to need this anymore, Because I didn't realize that I had a disease. I thought I had a drug problem, okay? One thing I'll tell you, that man 38 years later is still my sponsor. The guy who approached me at my first meeting. I finally was getting to this realization, I guess I have a drug problem and I better do something about it. And that's when you start hearing at meetings when people say, drugs are not really the problem. And I heard a guy say early on, I'll never forget exactly the way he said it. He goes, if you think that drugs are your problem, I have a solution for you. And you'll never need one of these meetings again. If drugs are really your problem, stop doing drugs and then your problem is gone. True. He said, but if you're like me and the problem at the root of it is the disease of addiction, then what you used drugs for was your solution. Drugs were my solution for everything. I had a bad day, I got high. People around me were bothering me, I got high. I had a good day, I got high. It was my solution. He said, but if you're like me and the drugs are your solution, then the root of your problem is the disease of addiction. And the only solution for the disease of addiction is a power greater than yourself that can restore you to sanity, which gets to the second step. I had to realize that I didn't have a drug problem. I had a life problem. My problem was up here. My problem was my way of thinking. The problem was the way I perceived reality. And the only solution, I was told, is a power greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. The third step says we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. I kind of misread this. With my background with God, I read, we are now basking in the glorious glow of God's presence and feel His beauty every second of the day. And where I wasn't feeling that at all. And my sponsor said to me, what is the basic action in the third step? And I said, turning it over. I said, no, it's not, read it again. The action is making a decision. As simple as the way to start working that third step is to say, all right, I've learned what the problem is in the first step. I've learned what the solution is in the second step. I'm going to go for it. I made a decision. I don't understand this, but I'm going to go for it. And early on, when I heard people sharing in meetings, I could feel that power. When I talked to my sponsor, I could feel the power. When I read our literature, I can feel that power, not as a source of the power, but those were conductors that this power was working through. And what I had to work on was something that worked for me. And my problem growing up is that people were trying to throw their religious beliefs on me and get me to believe what they believed in, instead of finding something that works for me and turning it over to that thing that works for me. That's a very personal thing for me. It may not be your higher power, but I found something that works for me. And when I took 90 days, our custom in Southern California was when you took a key tag, you got up and said something, said a few words. And I said, my name is Steve, I'm an addict, I've got 90 days, and I don't know that I know about this higher power thing, but I know that I have 90 days clean. And a lady came over to me after the meeting, and a lady I didn't particularly care for. And she said, Steve, you have 90 days clean? You have a higher power working in your life, because there's absolutely no way you could have done this on your own. And that made sense, because I can't. And what I learned here is that we can together. I learned so much from the other addicts in Narcotics Anonymous. It's amazing. I'm going to tell you my 3 favorite lines in the basic text, because they all come from I can't and we can. The therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. That is my favorite line in the basic text. The heart of NA beats when 2 addicts share their recovery. That's special for me. And just for today, I will have faith in someone in NA who believes in me and wants to help me in my recovery. Because what I found that I had no idea was that we can do this together, what we can never do alone. You know, it all says in the basic text, this program does for us what we could never do for ourselves. And the last person that I thought that I'd get any recovery from is another addict. When I go back in 1978, and I still used for another 8.5 years, in 1978, I was driving on the 101 freeway. You know the 101 freeway? I was driving in Van Nuys, California, and I saw the blue and red lights behind me, and the siren went off, and I got pulled over. And I had a backpack in the passenger seat, right? The passenger seat is on this side. Our passenger seat's on this side. But I had 5 different substances. So cop had a field day with me, and they took me in, and they threw me in jail. And I went before a judge the next morning. And the judge says, this is your first time, your first offense. We have a diversion program. You're going to go see a therapist, a counselor for 6 weeks. And if you complete that, this will be off your record. It's like it never happened. And I was in the process of applying for a professional license. And one of the questions on the professional license, have you ever been arrested? And the judge says, you can answer no, because it'll be completely wiped off your record. So I went to see this guy. And the first night he was looking at the file, and he goes, wow, I see you got caught with a whole bunch of different drugs. Tell me. And I was open with him. And then I said to him, what drugs do you do? He said, I don't do drugs. I said, how the hell do you know what I'm going through? My addict brain still didn't put together I can't and we can. I didn't realize that the only person who can help me was another addict. But somewhere in the back of my mind, when I finally heard the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is our peril, I went, that's why that guy couldn't do anything for me 8 years ago. Now, if that judge had sent me to an NA meeting, it might have been a different story. I don't know. Because I got it at my first NA meeting. And that first NA meeting was January 13th of 1987. And I've been clean since then. It's 38 years and now the 4-step, I'm sure we all saw that 4-step and jumped right in, right? There's no hesitation, you just jump right in. The 4-step scared the crap out of me because I was finally going to learn some things about myself. And I was about to go on a vacation. And I was going up to a gorgeous place called Glacier National Park on the border of Montana and Canada. Just a gorgeous place. And I made a commitment to my sponsor. I had 6 months clean. I made a commitment to my sponsor. I am going to write 1 hour every morning, 1 hour every night for 2 weeks. So I'm committing 28 hours to write my 4-step. And when I come back, we'll go over it. Now, we had our one daughter was 2 years old, and my wife was now pregnant at 6 months clean with another child. And the day before we were to leave, she had a miscarriage. And it was a tubal pregnancy, and she was rushed to the hospital. She was rushed to the hospital, had emergency surgery. In the back of my mind, I went, wow, I don't have to do that 4-step. That's how much I didn't want to do it. But we went on that vacation 2 months later, and I sat there every single morning. And once I put the pen to paper, it just flowed. It just flowed. And I wrote 1 hour every morning, and then I went into the lodge at Glacier National Park, and there were 2 guys playing guitar in the bar. 2 guys playing guitar, and I sat under a lamp and I wrote for 1 hour every night. And I went back and did my 5th step at the World Service Office with my sponsor. And it's not like I was completely unburdened, but what I was doing is I'd take a look under the rock and go, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, I did that. And I told things to this man that I never told anyone. And I probably haven't told people since. And his empathy is he shared things with me that he did, and I went, oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. And I learned a lot about myself. The 6th step says, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I have defects. And the problem isn't that I have them. The problem is that I was comfortable with them. I had to take on a different personality when I was using. I had to lie, I had to cheat, I had to do whatever I could to get high. So I took on a different personality. And the 6th step poses the question, in the first 5 steps, we learned the problem, we learned the solution, we made a decision to go for it, and we learned a lot about ourselves. The 6th step is the first time that we are posed the question is, do you now have the balls to change? Do you now can make changes in your life where this power that you made a decision in the 3rd step to turn your will and life over is in charge of these changes? And, I still work on that step because it's not easy to get rid of all these defects of character. And someone told me, what's the difference between a defect of character and a shortcoming? And I've heard a lot of different definitions. The one that I like the best is the defect of character is owning a car that has 3 wheels. A shortcoming is trying to drive the damn thing, is acting out on that defect, And that's what I try to do. I had these defects and I was just did my best to have this higher power help me remove these defects. And again, I'm not perfect, and that's why I'm still here. When I first saw the 8th step, these first 7 sounded weird to me. The 8th one sounded great when I first read the stuff. Made a lost of all person we at harm, became willing to make amends to them all, and made direct amends. That's pretty easy. Let's start with that one. There's a reason that it's number 8. Okay? Because if I had tried doing that when I first got clean, I'd go over to people and, I'm clean now, and they turn around and go, I wonder what he's up to this time. We need to make changes in our life before we can make this process of amends. Now, there was a movie when I was young called Love Story, and the slogan for Love Story was, love means never having to say you're sorry. I don't know if anyone remembers that movie. But to me, the process of amends is never having to say you're sorry. It's taking a look at the relationships in my life that are screwed up and changing my part, because I can't change someone else. And the biggest process of amends I had to make was with my parents. I did not like my parents. They tried to force this religion on me, even through my 30s. They would not give up. And, I was living in California and they were in Florida, and that's a long way. It's a 5-hour flight to get there, and I'd go see them once a year, and it would end up in an argument, every time. And we'd argue, and then I'd go out and get high and leave my poor wife there sitting with my parents. And I went to visit them when I had a year and a half clean. And the way I made amends to my parents is that we played Trivial Pursuit from 8 o'clock till midnight. There were no arguments. There was no fighting. I wasn't telling them that their religion is screwed up. We just had a good time. And at the end of the night, my dad said, wow, this was really nice. What's going on? And I said, you know what? I said, you guys know that I had this problem with drugs. Well, I'm now a member of Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm just trying to change my life. And my relationship there were a lot of other amends to family members. There were some financial amends I needed to make. And I worked with a sponsor who went through every single one and what's the best way, because, of course, I don't want to make any amends that would injure other people. But I had a lot of amends to make, and I went through them. I mentioned, has anyone else here lived and have ever lived in the States? You? Are you in amends? No, I don't think so. Okay, good. Anyway, the 10th step, we continue to take personal inventory when we're wrong, promptly admitted it. The 10th step is for me to say I'm sorry. When I look every day, did I say something inappropriate? Did I do something that I shouldn't have done today? And promptly take care of it. Because if I let those things build up, I'm going to have a big problem on my hands. So I have a little thing going on, and I had, what was it? I went back to work for a financial company I was working for, and I worked my way into middle management in a Fortune 500 company. And my boss called me one day and he said, Steve, I know the quarter is over, and you're expecting a sizable bonus. Well, corporate has just made a change in the compensation plan. I want you to realize you're not going to get what you thought you were going to get. And it's just a big corporate decision, which is why I got out of corporate America. And I lit into him. I said, this is the guy who taught me the business that I was in. I said, John, you know, this, I don't curse, but I did then. I said, this is just not right. You can't do this. And I realized at the end of the day that I lit into this guy, and it wasn't his issue. He was just delivering the message. And I called him the next day and I said, John, I need to let you know that I'm really sorry for what I said yesterday. I didn't mean it. You didn't deserve it. I know it wasn't you. And he said, Steve, you don't have to call me and tell me that. You stick up for yourself and you stick up for our company, which is why we love you. You didn't have to call me and tell me that. And I said, John, I needed to do that for me, not just for you. You know, and he knew I was in recovery. I'm sure he didn't know the steps too well. But I said, I need to do this for myself because I can't let them grow like mushrooms and get worse. I have to take care of things when they happen. Step 11 was, of course, difficult for me with my upbringing. But what I do now is every single morning I have a certain spot that I go to. There's a nice warm red light. There's water. And I sit and I read the Just for Today. And if you haven't seen the new Spiritual Meditation a Day book, it's awesome. And I read the Spiritual Meditation a Day, and I just try to sit and be quiet for 10 minutes. And then when I'm done, I flush the toilet. And that's where I do my 11th step every morning. There is a red light and there is water. I wasn't making that up. What I found now in talking to my sponsor is, to me, that is my time of prayer because I am saying things, I'm reading the words. My meditation, I was talking to Alan about this, the way I meditate the best is that I put some skis on my feet and take a chair up to 12,000 feet and ski down a mountain. Because if meditation is trying to quiet the mind from the endless progression of thoughts, the only way that the best way that I really clear my mind is skiing. And I never realized that I was meditating because when I'm up skiing, nothing bothers me. Okay? The phone could be in my pocket in case of emergency because emergencies could happen. But nothing bothers me. I can't think of anything but making the next turn. And this process of prayer meditation, which I first thought there's no way I'd be able to do that, has been one of the most important things in my recovery. And if there's a day, and I'm fortunate that I'm retired now, so I never have a morning where I have to rush to get out to work. But if there was a day where I had to rush to get out, the day wasn't as smooth. I just need to quiet myself in the morning, and I do it every single day. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we've tried to carry this message to addicts and practice this principle in all our affairs. And to me, the 12 steps talked about a couple things, and one of them is doing service. If you don't have a service position in Narcotics Anonymous, you're missing out on a big part of this program. And, do I do service because I am so great that I'm going to help other people? If I help someone else with the service I do, that's great. But I do service because it helps me stay clean. And there were times in my recovery, Denver is a younger fellowship. And a lot of the times over a few year period, I'd go into the meeting in Denver, Colorado, and I was the oldest person in the room by like 30 years. And I had the most clean time in the room. And I had a tough time relating at times, But service is something that I always have at least one, but never more than 2 service positions. And I do a lot of work on the Colorado Convention of Narcotics Anonymous. We're having our 39th regional convention next month in November. You're all invited. It's a great celebration of recovery. There'll be about 1,000 addicts there. But I've always had a service position. And the first service position I had, when I had 6 months clean, my sponsor said, you need a service position. And I liked the phone. I made a living on the phone. I was in a very low-tech business. I was on the phone making sales. I actually was in the employment business. I sold people. I found jobs for people and made a living on the phone. So I said, how about phone lines? So the phone would ring on Monday from 6 p.m. to midnight. Phone would ring in my house, and it was the NA hotline. And I loved that service commitment. And they gave me a training session where they gave me a notebook with different tabs that says, okay, if someone needs a ride to a meeting, add men's numbers and women's numbers. There's a meeting list. If it's a family member, here's what to do. If it's someone calling about prison, there were just different things to do. And one night I got a call, and this lady said, Steve, I need your help. I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I'm calling about my son. So right away I went to the family's part and She said, let me tell you what's going on. A couple of nights ago, he and his friends broke into a pharmacy, and they tripped off an alarm, and cops caught them, and one of his idiot friends started shooting at the cop car. So he's in downtown LA jail, and I'd like you to go see him. I looked through that book. That one was not in there at all. And I called my sponsor, and I said, what do I do? And he said, if you have the time, go visit him in jail and bring him a basic text and bring him a message of recovery. So I went to downtown LA jail, and I don't know if you can imagine what downtown LA jail is like. It's not a fun place. I felt out of place, and I waited and sat there, and then they brought me over to this glass window, and I pick up a phone. There's a guy on the other side, and I said, I don't know what I babbled. My name is Steve, and I'm an addict, and I'm here to bring you a message of recovery, and I bought you a basic text of Narcotics Anonymous, and I started babbling, and he said, my mother sent you. And I said, actually, yes, I heard about you from your mother, but I want to let you know that you don't have to suffer from this disease, that in Narcotics Anonymous we have a daily reprieve. You know, we get to live just for today clean. And, you know, when you get out of here, I'd love to see you at an NA meeting. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I went out to my car, and I couldn't drive because I was crying like a baby. Did I do something for this guy? Who knows? But I stayed clean, and that's why I do service, because it helps me stay clean. The next story I want to tell you is that I'm really into music. If you haven't seen, and you see I wear my tie-dye, I'm an old hippie from the 60s and 70s, and I'm a big music fan. And you know, there's a lot of meetings in the San Fernando Valley, and I was told that there's a singer from a famous rock band who is going to be speaking at a meeting. And Steve, you'd love to hear this guy's story because he's really funny. So I went to the meeting. This was about a couple of years after the jail, about 2.5 years after the jail time, the jail visit. I went to the meeting. At the end of the meeting in California, they give out cakes for people with clean time. And the guy got up and he goes, I'm celebrating 2 years clean. It was the guy I visited in jail. He was taking a cake for 2 years clean. So if you don't think doing service works, it does. You know, I go into a treatment center the fourth Monday of every single month, and I talk to usually about 50 people who are in for 30 days inpatient. And the best thing that can happen is when I see that person at my home group a month or two later. You know, and I practice this principle in all my affairs, in my family affairs, in work. One of the ways I practice in all these affairs is I'm a big music fan. I go to hundreds of concerts or thousands of concerts. I call it addiction. There are 5 bands in the jam band or hippie community that I've seen over 100 times each. I go to a lot of shows. And these bands allow us to set up recovery tables at their concerts. And if you're ever at a concert, certainly in the States and maybe here sometime, and you see people with yellow balloons, it means they're in recovery. And these bands let us have a recovery meeting at their intermission break. And it's a big part of my recovery. And there's people from all different fellowships that do this at shows. And there was a guy who was coming around, and he'd have a beer in one hand and whatever in the other hand, and hey, Steve, you know, someday I'm going to join you guys, because someday I'll be ready for this. And went on for a while, and he said, Steve, tell me about these other meetings you go to. Billy celebrated 14 years in May, and he found it at concerts. He found recovery at concerts. So, you know, I used to not sure about that, because is it an outside issue? And my sponsor said, if you're practicing these principles in all your affairs, it's something to share at an NA meeting. Okay? You know, I said one of my favorite lines is, am I good on time? I'm the only speaker, so bear with me, okay? Sponsorship. You know, just for today, I will have faith in someone in NA who believes me and wants to help me in my recovery. Sponsorship is a big, big part of my recovery. You know, there's something about two addicts, two self-willed people getting together and talking, and what comes out of it is recovery. Something doesn't make sense about that. But I have a fantastic relationship with my sponsor. I have a fantastic relationship with my sponsorship brothers. My sponsor sponsors about 12 or 13 of us, and we get together online once a week and share, and sometimes share things we wouldn't share at meetings. And I sponsor about 6 guys in Narcotics Anonymous. And, you know, I don't know, I know I get a lot from them. Do they get more from me? I'll never know. But I get a lot out of the people I sponsor because they get to share with me recovery. And that's so important. You know, talk about having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. I didn't come here for a spiritual awakening. I came here because I thought I had a drug problem. And I stayed because I realized that I have a disease, you know. And I'm still here this much later because I know that I will have this disease for the rest of my life. Okay? I'm going to die with this disease. The reason I'm here is I don't want to die because of this disease. I don't want to die from this disease. But I know I'll die with this disease. You know, and I talked about all these beautiful things that have happened to me in recovery. And what did I do to deserve this? I lied, I cheated, I stole, I disappointed everyone who loved me, and I used drugs obsessively and compulsively on a daily basis. And for that, I was given this miracle of recovery because I knew I can't and we can. That doesn't make sense. But, you know, there are people getting recovery in different ways. There are people that are getting it through religion. There are people that are getting it through psychiatry. There are people getting it through meditation. The 12 steps are tailor-made for this addict. And you know, I'm sure for a lot of you as well, or you wouldn't be sitting here. The 12 steps are just tailored. The first time I read our basic text, I wanted to know when the royalty checks would come because someone got in my head and wrote exactly about me. I read everything about myself in that basic text. I will close. That's about right. Oh, he's got me timed.
FYI.
They said I have 3 hours.
You can have all the time we leave. We're leaving soon.
I'm gonna close with this. You know, sometimes people say at a meeting or at a convention, I'm gonna close with this, and they go on another 8 or 10 minutes, and you go, "Where's the close part?" In the 80s, in the United States, there was a slogan that was going on. It was on billboards, and it said, "Just say no to drugs." You guys have heard of that? Just say no. Okay. Do you know what? In 1986, where I was in my disease, just say no wasn't getting the job done. You know, just say no might have been good for kids who have never used before, but what I found in Narcotics Anonymous is we have the Just Say Yes program. Can you really put down the drugs? Just say yes. Can you go to 90 meetings in 90 days? Just say yes. Would you chair the meeting tomorrow? Just say yes. Can you help clean up after the meeting? Just say yes. Would you be my sponsor? Just say yes. Would you come to Liverpool and speak at a convention? Just say yes. And I promise every one of you that if you just say yes to Narcotics Anonymous, the miracle will happen for you as it has happened for so many beautiful people in this room. And I'm honored to share my recovery with you. My name is Steve. I'm an addict. Thank you.
All right, would you all please help me thank Steve again? All right. I'd like to thank Alex at the back from Wales for putting the list together and handing out all the readings. Thank you, Alex. And could Joel from Wolsey please come up and read just for today?
All right, everyone, I'm Joel, I'm an addict.
Hi, Joel.
Tell yourself, just for today, my thoughts will be on my recovery, living and enjoying life without the use of drugs. Just for today, I will have faith in someone in NA who believes in me and wants to help me in my recovery. Just for today, I will have a program. I will try to follow it to the best of my ability. Just for today, through NA, I will try to get a better perspective on my life. Just for today, I will be unafraid. Unfortunately, on my new associations, people who are not using a new found a new way of life. So as long as I follow that way, I have nothing to fear.
Okay, all right. So can we end the meeting by everybody circling up, and we'll close out by saying the we version of the Serenity Prayer together. Right. We do it different. So, God. Grant us the ability to accept things that cannot change, the courage to change things that can, and the wisdom to know the difference, even when our back wills to reconcile and will our
I feel like the breeze and the numbers are the same. Hey, complaining is not really the thing to
Thank you. Brilliant chat.
I'm sitting up here taking
I didn't take my eyes off that. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Alex Bobby from Bombay. Living in England, Leicester. California. I met him in 92 in Bombay, and he was very instrumental. Getting everything together. Nice seeing you.
Thank you for your show, mate. That was amazing, man. I'm getting emotional.
You see, for the share, I'm on the same steps as you said. So the short form, how you explain it.
Thank you for sharing the solution, no problem. You're saying that? Have you heard of Glastonbury Festival? Sure. They've got an annual meeting now.
Yeah.
They've got it on NA10.
Wow.
Friend of mine in Kentucky, he has a company that runs all the music festivals for Republican.
Cool. So there's a local Bournemouth group doing it. That's
Congratulations. Thank you. You did a great job. All that worrying was for nothing.
No, don't worry. There's so many things I want to say that I did.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
so
But
many
but no, you were perfect. And I wasn't telling you to stop. I was only letting you know this is how far you've gone.
They said I could go 45.
Oh, yeah. But I only started recording after you started the cannibal joke.
That's a wrong story.
Oh, yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Okay. So all the readings are there. Oh, yeah. And don't forget your jacket.
I got lost.
Okay.
Just for reference,
Hiya.
Are you okay?
Yeah, you all right?
You okay?
Yeah.
Oh.
let me squeeze by. Yeah. No. Not going anywhere. All right. Take care.
You too, sweet.
All right. Take care. Nice to meet you. Okay. Yes. The NA conventions, yeah? So the world conventions, they always do a nice Bill Blass shirt. And this was the logo for the Texas. No. We have a message of hope and a promise of freedom.
Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the World Convention shirt when it was in San Antonio, Texas. Yeah.
We'll try and find it online secondhand.
Oh yeah. This one's second favorite. The one when we had the 50th anniversary in San Diego, for NA being 50, that was in 2003. So yeah, just getting started. Oh dear. Oh.
We made it here though.
Yes, yeah. Where are you guys from?
Accrington.
Where's that?
It's Lancashire.
Oh, okay,
Not
all right.
too far.
Yeah.
Northwest, so,
Yeah.
Not too far. You
I live in
Colorado
Las.
as well?
No. That's I've seen him online and yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it?
But my sponsee brother Michael sponsors Ron, who sponsors him.
Isn't that crazy? That
I know.
I had
Yeah.
it yesterday. There was an Irish woman who did a share.
Yeah.
I keep telling everyone she was Helen.
Yeah.
And I heard her. I was like, she sounds like my sponsor. And I texted my sponsor, and it's her sponsor.
Ah!
So do you see what I mean? It happens, doesn't it?
It
Like
does,
just crazy
it does,
change
yeah.
of it all.
All right. Do you have 2 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. I was asked to speak at a meeting, and it was way far away, and I agreed to it. So a couple of months later, they call me and remind me. I'm like,
I know. Oh my God.
driving all the way the hell up to this place, 150 miles away, out in the middle of the desert. And I said, there's a fucking meeting, two fucking people there, and there's not going to be, why did I agree to this and all this shit? I finally find the place. It's in an industrial area, and I'm like, oh great, there's not even and I come in through all these giant tractor trailers, and there's this giant door open, and there's this big like stadium seating. They have an NA symbol on the wall, 40 foot. With the NA service symbol, they had an espresso bar, and I'm like, holy shit! What the hell? Out in the middle of nowhere. So I shared, and so I never know what I'm going to share. It's always different. And at some point, I mentioned about Jimmy K. Jimmy Kennedy, the one who started it. And at the end of the meeting, I see this older couple, and she had taken a 30-day key tag. And they come up and they thank me, and she says, I really want to thank you about mentioning Jimmy. And I'm like, I saw you take a newcomer key tag, because Jimmy died in '85. I said, how do you know Jimmy? And the two of them, they looked around like this. He's my dad.
Oh my God, that's want to cry. Oh my God, amazing.
I know. Yeah. So Kathy and Larry, I was friends with them for many years, and then Larry passed.
Shivers down my.
Yeah.
What beautiful.
These things, they happen all the time in Narcotics Anonymous.
We're bonded, aren't we? That's precious. That's.
Oh yeah.
I hope she's pulled onto that thing.
Oh yeah. And she stayed clean since. Yeah. She wrote a book,
Really? You'd be so
yeah,
proud
so she's
of her,
doing
eh?
well. Oh yeah.
Oh, that is incredible. What's your name?
Alan.
Alan.
Yeah,
Lovely to meet you.
yeah.
I'm Lol.
Hi. What's your name?
Laurie.
Hey, Laurie.
Americans know my name, so I'm
Yeah.
alright. In England, they all go Lauren, and I'm like, no, Laurie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and Becky.
Hi, Becky.
Hi.
All right then.
Oh, it's been lovely
Okay. All right.
talking.
Take care then.
See you.
Bye bye. What are you up? Oh no!
What's without it? everyone said that. But you know what?
Really were.
I'm just staying positive
That's all
because
you can do. You'll drive yourself down the bench.
to me, he doesn't look the way he looked when he first got cancer. He's a bit fatigued and tired, but you know, like, look, it's that trachea that takes it out of him, and I've just said, like, please don't get it.
That's all the
I'll
reason.
just give you 2 days off. But if it's anything, I'm just going to go on sick and take time
And
for that.
I only pressed that button. I didn't turn it off over there.
Okay.
So
The accent.
Second.
Yeah, where are you from?
He's originally from Liverpool, believe it or not.
And where do you live now?
I'm Los Angeles.
I got a friend called Kim, she lives in New York.
Oh yeah.
He's just pressed pause, so I'm giving it, he's only pressed pause, so.
Okay. Let's put it back on and then if we press that down.